Welcome to the Varsity Voices podcast, where every week we bring you the inside information and insight on Chicago Catholic League football. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and like us on wherever you get your favorite podcast from. You can also find us on X. We're at Varsity_Voices1, Instagram at _Varsity Voices, Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League football, and on YouTube at the Varsity Voices. If you want to leave us a comment, you can do it wherever you're listening from. You can also email us at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. I'm Joe Frevaletti, one of your hosts, and here with me is your other host, Dan Frevaletti. And we're continuing today with another one of our preseason special episodes of From the Coach's Office. And this time we had a chance, Dan, to talk with head football coach at St. Viator, Dave Archibald. So he's going into year 9 at St. Viator, his 22nd year of coaching, I think he said. He was in the college ranks as well. So he brings a wealth of experience and, really provides some key insights regarding the Chicago Catholic League, as well as St. Viator football program. And his team this year, and he really has some high expectations for his team this year.
Well, they should, Joe. And before I get too deep into that, how do I sound? I have a new microphone.
You sound good.
All right. I kind of feel it feels a little bit like NPR. I almost feel like it's the SNL skit with the women and the Alec Baldwin one where they're on NPR. I kind of feel like I have that sound going. But
you got a good sound going. And I was thinking about the comment you made after one of our previous episodes where we sound like maybe we're from the World War II radio.
Yes.
And I thought about that a couple of times. So, hopefully with your new microphone setup, and it looks really nice.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, listeners, they can weigh in, leave a comment, say, hey, Dan, you sound really good with your new mic.
Right. Yeah. My, the friends of the podcast who comment to me, that is friends and family, they said I always sound like I'm sitting next to a running air conditioner. So especially during these interviews. So I'm hoping to avoid that and made a little investment in a microphone. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I know our listeners can't see us, but you and I can see
Thank
each
goodness.
other
Yes.
in the studio. But
right.
Yeah, you look very professional.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, we're getting there.
The headphones going, the microphone going.
Locked and loaded.
Yeah, what else? What's next after that?
Just probably if we're ever going to go live and add video, probably have to get one of those fancy cool cameras, that makes us look really good. It's got to be slimming.
Cameras, right? Yeah, and I might have to get some type of surgery on my eyes too, so I don't need to constantly be wearing my reading glasses.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
We're men of a certain age, that's for sure.
Yeah. So have we hit the Borders rule?
What's that? Yes. Yeah. We are at the Borders rule of 3 to 5 minutes of banter. And then let's get down to it. Yes. But back to St. Viator, they return a lot of talent, led by their quarterback, Cooper Kmet. And they are poised to have a really good season. I think you'll hear that he's very excited about this class, excited about the direction of the program. Interesting that, some of the coaches we talk to, we ask about numbers a lot, numbers of players in the program. And it's different how the answers are kind of, I don't know, different than maybe I expected, where some are up and some are down. And it might be different than you think as far as where schools are located and what's happening with youth football. So he addresses that a little bit, but as far as the season goes, I think they're poised for a really good one. And that division is shaping up to be really tough.
Yeah. So that's a purple division, right?
Yes.
I believe. Yeah, it is, going to be a tough division. And he talks about that, right? He provides some good insight into the Chicago Catholic League, the divisions, the caliber of teams within the league and within the division. So I think he provides some really good information throughout the interview, which our listeners are going to enjoy. So why don't we get right to that?
Sounds good.
Hello, and thank you for joining us at Varsity Voices for this special edition from the coach's office. Today we are joined by head coach for the St. Viator Lions, David Archibald. Coach, thank you for joining us in the virtual studio today.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Sure. So you are entering, correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, your 9th season as head coach?
Correct. Yep.
And how fast has that time gone by?
Sometimes, as I said, days can seem long, and then the weeks and months and years just pick up speed, right? I think
they sure
for
do.
all of us in life as we get older. But, now I think, your first couple or few years, it's a lot. Your learning curve is so significant, and you're figuring out culture, and you're figuring out how to work with the young men in your program and where you want things to go. And now it's gotten to the point where so much of the foundation is there, and we feel good about that. It's just looking at what do you tweak, how do you approach things a little differently each year, where do you need to grow at, and that's part of the joy of coaching, right? For me, is just, I look at myself in my first few years here, and I look at myself today, and I'm the same person, my values are the same, but I'm a different coach. I feel like that growth is something that's exciting when you see that in your first decade as a head coach, and it only motivates me even more to keep going and climbing and growing myself. Yes, it's going quickly though. Yes.
That's good. And what on the field, what are some of the bigger changes you've seen from the game in the last 10 years?
Certainly the game always evolves, schematically, right? You look at, and I love talking to people about, and I've even presented this before in little talks about kind of the history of football over decades and, 20-year periods and the things that evolve and develop. So I think obviously, schematically things change, and I'm one who likes to try to stay up as much as I can on everything happening at every level, and then seeing what might apply to us. And part of that though is not just external; it's internal. It's looking at who is returning, what are your strengths on your team, and what do you pay attention to out there, and what do you not? Which coaches do I want to talk to, and which do I not need to talk to? Not because I couldn't learn anything from them, but because it just doesn't fit us. So that's something that's always going on. And then I would say in the last 10 years too, just more and more people, I think, utilizing a model I think that I brought here when I came, because I was used to it from a Division III school I coached at, with just a different style of practicing and a different style of preparation than we had probably when a lot of us played growing up, right? And the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, I just think how people practice was so different. It was much more just toughness-based and conditioning-based and hitting-based. And all those things are vital for being a good team. So I believe in all of those, but how things were just centered on that. And I think a lot more now we're looking at how do we take care of the athlete, how do we get them to be tough, physical players, but in a way that also takes care of their bodies.
Yeah. So you said 9 years, right? You were 9 years at St. Viator, and you just mentioned you came from the college ranks. And I think you just mentioned one of the differences or challenges, but what were some of the biggest differences or challenges coming from college to high school, Coach?
Sure. So I was 5 years as a high school assistant. I'm going to my 22nd year coaching next year. 5 years as a high school assistant, 8 years as a D3 assistant, which was the way I feel about it is like that was getting my true bachelor's degree in coaching, and now I feel like my last 9 years have been getting a master's, and now I'm jumping into the PhD program, and I want to keep on going. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think that's how I feel about my own growth as a coach, and again, part of the joy is just always knowing that there are people you can learn from, and there are things that you're going to learn from in your experience. But it's I feel really really great about where we're at and where we're headed. But I think obvious biggest difference is when you come from like a college coach at any level, and D3 school, you have 100 or more on your roster, right? So when rosters are between 100 and 115 on a college roster, just the way you practice, obviously being full go-to platoon except in certain circumstances, and then just obviously other elements about the game. When the amount of time that teams are able to spend in meetings in college versus what you get in high school, which might be a 30 to 45-minute meeting before practice, and you don't always get that, all right, now, team meeting, now position meeting, now special teams meeting, okay, now to the field after film, right, which would be more of a college model. For us, we're dealing with high school athletes, which is awesome and a total joy, but their time is different and your numbers are different. And at a school like St. Viator, we're a 4A school, so we're in that range of where you're going to dress 40 to 50 on a given Friday night. And so your numbers that you're practicing with and having some two-way players, right, I think those are some of the biggest differences that I experienced.
Yeah, how are your numbers, Coach, over the last couple of years? Are they trending up or?
We've been stable, and I would say our participation number at the school, percentage-wise, has been fantastic. So we typically have around maybe 395 to 400 or in the 400 range of boys in our building at a co-ed school, and we've been stable at about 80 or even over 80 in the program. So when you look at like percentage participation in our building, it's been fantastic. Most schools our size, and this is just normal, I think it's just typical for participation, most have a lot of 2 levels. And we've been able to hold a 3rd schedule every year, and that's been great just for development. And I think, guys that don't get as stagnant if they're not, they know they're going to get to play, even if they might not be ready for varsity yet, they're going to get on the field and a JV game, right? And we're holding a true freshman level, and that's been really good, I think, for development in our program.
Yeah, that is good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Coach, doing a little research before our interview, I went back recent history. So in 2021, you guys didn't make the playoffs. 2022, advanced to the first round. Last year, I think you won a game maybe and got to the second round. What is it going to take to kind of keep progressing on that playoff run?
Oh boy, I mean it's a lot of things. I mean our league it's such a phenomenal place to play football, and we just describe our conference schedule every year as a buzzsaw. And as you know, you can. I mean, there can be teams in our league. I mean, literally, I'm thinking of one of our larger schools, and you can look it up and you'll know who I'm talking about, right? They were top 40 in the state last year, right? But they didn't go to the bracket. I mean, top 40 in the state out of 515 approximately, and they had 2 brutal non-conference games, which they lose those by 1 point or a touchdown or whatever. And then you go into the schedule where some of our bigger teams at C, Loyola, Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, St. Rita, et cetera, and they end at 4-5 or 3-6, and they can literally be in the top tier of programs in the state. So I think the biggest thing for us is just you got to go out, you got to prepare hard every week. So many of our games are 50-50 games. Even the ones like you don't circle like 3 games as the tough games in our schedule. You just circle the schedule, right? So in that regard, you got to battle through that. You got to stay healthy. But it's, that's huge. I mean, you look at teams in our league. If there are issues there, that can have an impact. But ultimately, it's just coming out and it's playing those 50-50s well. Trying to sneak a game where maybe someone doesn't expect you to win. Okay, we had one of those last year, and that was just a great staple win for our program and showed the growth of our players and gave them this confidence that we're telling them, yeah, you really can compete with anybody if you go out and play the way you're capable of playing, right, on a Friday. So. Yes, and as far as other things, I mean, development in our program, schematically and things, I feel really good about where we are. I've had stability in our coaching staff, things like that all can contribute to years where you maybe are flowing or trying to take strides. So we're in a good spot going into this year as far as I know we're going to be a very competitive team, but again it's the Catholic League, right? So we pretty much just win on each other, and whoever's left standing with 5 wins or better gets to move on, and you got to you have to accept that, right? You can't just fall over and get in the playoffs in our schedule.
Yeah, we've heard it described as a meat grinder. Now you've used buzzsaws. So yeah, pick your awful analogy there. So,
so 2-part question for you, Coach. First part is, what was it like to coach Cole Kmet? Second part is now you get to coach Cooper Kmet. Mm-hmm. I realize they play different positions, but any similarities between the two of them?
Oh, sure. There are similarities, but their experiences have been different. In my experience with them, in that I got Cole for 1 year, right? So he was already committed. I didn't really have a big part in his development for years, right? I got to come in for the last year, and I think the thing I'm most grateful for about that was here I was a young raw head coach, first-time head coach, and the respect that he gave and that he demanded of his team, that we listen and we work and we buy in, it was it was fantastic. And he's such a great player to have. Obviously, your first year, that was a total benefit and blessing for me. But it was also just that off-field respect, humility, the way he listened, and then the way he worked, and it was a great year. And schematically, again, we're just in a different place now. When I watch game, you wish you knew now or knew then what you know now type thing. I so wish that I could have offered those guys even more, but we did well and we worked hard and we all gave our best. And the one thing I really look back there, I think that when I go back to films of that year, the one thing I always am proud of is, I think, utilizing Cole in a versatile way was one of the strengths that I had that year. I just kind of, and again, I was a young coach, first time through as a head coach, but I one of the things I knew is I've got to find every different way to put pressure on defenses by never letting them know where Cole might be. And when you go back to the films, I put him everywhere, and that did. And I even heard, even after the season, I heard from D coordinators in our league that was one of the hardest things for them, was just that I had him isolated. I had him in bunch sets. We had him in the wing. We had him in line. I had him in the backfield. I had him in wildcat. We motioned him. Sometimes we decoyed with him. It was just, I think that went well. As far as, here and now, Cooper came into the program at a different time in its maturation, and has gotten to walk 4 years in it and as a quarterback. And I think that's just been, when I look now at his path and where we are today, I'm just grateful for that. I think we've just developed so much trust. I trust him. Our eyes see things now the way, you kind of, as a head coach, as a coordinator, you got to get your quarterback to know what your eyes are looking at and what you're valuing, and then also hear their feedback on what they're seeing. And that relationship has been fantastic. There's nobody I'd want running our offense. He's got all the reps behind him, and so many hours sitting here in my office watching film and talking about things where we're at a really high level of detail in how we're conversing and what he knows, and then you go let them use their athleticism and go play ball.
Great, yeah.
Coach, in addition to Cooper Kmet at quarterback, you're not short on experience. Looking at returning all conference players, I see Davion Ellis, and I forgive me if I screw up the names. Jalen Slehetka,
yep.
Ben Konopka, Ethan Angst. So this rising senior class seems to be a special one. What can you tell us about that group as a whole?
As you said, there's certainly athleticism in that group, and there's experience. Davion got on the varsity field halfway through his freshman year when a player ahead of him was dealing with an issue and was out for a varsity player. Jalen, a lot of the guys you just mentioned, Ethan Angst, obviously Ben Konopka, Michael Tauscher, there's a whole bunch I go through the whole list. There's more I could mention as well, that are guys that a lot of these guys. So in 2022, we made the playoffs that year. We were very senior and sophomore heavy. And so a lot of those guys were either, playing or seeing some mixed varsity JV time, in Monday JV games, and then some were starting on varsity. And then last year, a lot of those juniors contributed to a really strong year and a playoff year for us. Now, I've been talking to them more and more about that recently, just about the maturity, all the different types of games they've been in. Not just, the athleticism's there, but they've been through all different types of games against all different types of opponents. They've faced adversity. They've had tough games. They've had great games. They've had big upsets. They had times where teams thought they were going to upset us, and then we put the pedal down and took it to that team. So, I really do expect, again, our schedule is always going to be that buzzsaw, as we said, but I expect this team to have a maturity in handling it and knowing that, one down in one series and one game or two games don't define you. It's really that full journey, and I think they understand that. So, and yes, a lot of talent. If you want to, we could talk more about specifics on guys if you're interested. But there's a lot of guys that are going to contribute.
Yeah. So you have 5 really talented all division selections from last year coming back. I think that's the most in the CCL this year, Coach. Does that put any added pressure on you or the team as far as expected success this year, or do you just see it as kind of a great position to be in, or a luxury? Yeah.
Just a good position to be in, because there's too many variables throughout a season on your team, on other teams. preseason rankings, it's kind of like, thank you and move on and get past that, because too many things can happen. As I said, there are phenomenal teams in our conference that can face major adversity, and then you go through a schedule like ours where you can't just circle, oh, these 3 games are automatic wins or something. That's just not reality. And so you have to go through it, like our conference, you have to go through with a sense of, I think, humility and a sense of respect for the level of football that you're just playing when you step on the field in our league. And so in that regard, yes, we're thrilled to have the guys with the experience they have, like I said, and I'm expecting a mature, a mature team, a mature mentality, good, the attitude and the energy and the effort. But you just got to go in. You got to go a step at a time. There's no other way to do it. Last year we dropped an opener that we were at least slightly favored to win, and all of a sudden we're 0-1 in a game where people thought, well, we can win that game and get off to a 1-0 or 2-0 start, and also we're 0-1. And I mean, these guys battled like crazy and won 5 out of the next 8. And I mean, in our schedule at a school our size from the Purple Division, that's far from a given. We had to win. We had to win every 50-50. We pulled an upset, and a couple games, a lot of people would say, and that's what it took just to get to accomplish what they did. So, yeah, one step at a time.
Yep.
Perfect, Coach. And you mentioned some of the guys, and we talked a little bit. Who else? You said talent. We'd love to hear about maybe people we don't know or players we don't know today that we will by the end of the fall.
Sure. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Davion. He's a true ATH player. Great young man. He's going to be a great college player. I'm so thankful to have him another year, and honestly, just going to miss seeing him around our building. He's a joy to coach, and such a great presence, just in our school and such. You mentioned Jalen. Jalen's very versatile, 2-way player. Jalen Shahetka. Ben anchors our line. Obviously, he's a third-year starter, and he's committed to Army West Point. And we're thrilled about that. I've always wanted to, continue a service academy. I've always felt what a privilege to be able to send someone to an academy, as it says a lot about the individual, both on the field and off. We're really proud of Ben for that. Our line, Pete LaFleur is returning, David Hosnettel, Sean McAndrews, are multiple returning starters, and then we've got some sophomores you'll see this year too. That our freshman class had a lot of talent, so there'll be some names that surface. I think there are 2 that you're going to see from our sophomore class of guys that can contribute. Defensively, Michael Tauscher, who plays both ways for us. Ethan Angst, you mentioned, was an all-conference linebacker, and then you'll see some of our ATH guys that have already been mentioned. You'll see on 2 sides of the field: Michael Zavalensky, Zach Mascolo, Alistair Kanya. I mean, we've got a number of guys that are on that defense that either started or saw significant time, and now have had an off season of learning and growth in our scheme. And then again, we'll have some young guys. We'll have some juniors. Star Gu played a lot for us last year. He's another name on defense. It's a returning starter. And then again, it's every year is new. So they're juniors and even sophomores that you'll see this year that are going to surface and have a big impact for us, I believe.
Good. So I just have one more question for you, Coach. And I've asked the other coaches that we've interviewed so far up to this point this same question. So a year from now, we're sitting down again for another interview. What do you hope we're talking about a year from now as far as St. Viator football and the program?
Well, obviously, we wish the best for the team this year and every year. And I think as a coach, you start to think in longer increment. It was several years ago I started to say, all right, what's my 5-year plan? What are the 5-year goals? And we've started to hit some of those. And again, I go by the, you want big goals, right? If you're once our PJ Flex say, if your goals don't scare you a little bit, they're not big enough. Like go big. So, years ago I wrote things that I wanted in the next 5 years, and thankfully we've hit some of those marks. But it's a thing where also you're grateful for the past, but you don't look back. We have our eyes in front of our head for a reason, right? We're going to look forward at again, trying to be the very best we can be this year. And then obviously when that season ends, for me it's you go what are the next steps? And I think for this group, I think one of the things about the team in another year will be we will have underclassmen, we will have juniors contributing this year, and I think our sophomore class again is a very talented one. So I think I mentioned where you sometimes a school our size, you ebb and flow about, okay, which which grades are your larger classes, which grades have more returning starters. And like you said, this year we played a lot of juniors last year. So I think a year from now, certainly there's going to be some juniors that are going to be second and third year starters, but I think we'll also be talking about a younger team next year, but one where kind of what I mentioned about 2022, I think that's going to be the case again for the next 2 years for us. We're like a little more vet this year, and then the next year a little younger, some seniors, and also a lot of juniors are going to be counted on. And that's just a process of weight room growth, right? I mean, every year in the weight room, part of the joy of coaching high school is, you see it in the college level too, obviously. Guys develop and keep growing, but in high school you tend to see the largest difference, right, between what they look like as freshmen and where they can be as juniors, and then juniors to seniors, right? Sometimes that growth is just extraordinary, and so I think we'll obviously be a more youthful team in another year, but certainly with a lot of guys that have been on the field still.
Well, Coach, this has been great. We really, really appreciate your time. It's great to hear your perspective, and I'm excited to see how your team performs on the field this year. We want to wish you the best of luck, and we appreciate you joining us on Varsity Voices from the coach's office. Coach, best of luck again this season, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Yep,
thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for your attention to high school football in Illinois and to the Catholic League. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, take care.
So that was Coach Archibald from St. Viator. Another interesting interview. One of the things, he's got a lot of talent returning, like we talked about, and he talked about in that interview, Dan. And I can get the sense that he's trying to temper expectations, even though he's probably got high expectations for his team. And that's due to the same thing we've heard from a lot of the coaches, that, hey, we got to get through our division and get through this conference, right?
Yeah, you'll see, and I'm just glancing at their schedule as we talk, and week 4 they're at Bennett for their first division game. That'll probably tell us a lot. I think the schools are evenly matched, and I think that's that week is going to tell a lot for both those schools. They go on a pretty tough run there from Bennett to St. Ignatius. The other game I would have circled is the following week, October 4th, against DePaul Prep, and I think you'll really see some of those seniors step up and lead this team. So we'll get an idea of what. Just how exactly strong they'll be moving into the playoffs. I definitely see them as a playoff team again, but we'll see just how strong they are, in that 3-week run.
Right. Yeah, they've got some real competition on their schedule this year. The other thing, and this is with all the different coaches interviews, I knew of the coaches within the, Chicago Catholic League, right? But what we have the ability, or we now have the ability to talk to some of them and get some of the, some of their insights and some of the details as far as how they do things. I knew they were all good coaches, but, they're really, really intelligent. They've got a wealth of experience. So not only is the conference or the league difficult from a competition perspective, but you've got a game plan against a coach across the field as well.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned talking to these coaches is that every time we do them, I'm more and more impressed with them, as a whole as we go. And, you've heard some of the coaches say, the difference in the Catholic League, not only the players, but the fact that you've got to prepare, each week against a great coach with a great coaching staff and a great program, and the big picture ideas, that they have, they're all thinking about their program. There are no secrets, right? There's no one that's going to surprise you. There's nothing people can do that are brand new. People can do that, So it is, and it's funny that we've heard now meat grinder. We've heard, what else have we heard? Headbanger, buzzsaw. Yeah. All the terms for the schedules, and they're no different, but they're clearly prepared. And, that's one thing that we're learning, that week in and week out, it's going to be a dogfight. There, I'll add another one to it.
Yeah. So again, I say this after every interview, but I'm really, really chomping at the bit to get the season started and to see how some of these teams do, not only out of conference with some of their initial games, but especially when they get within the Chicago Catholic League and within their division. I think there's going to be some really exciting and interesting games this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's really exciting. Now we're less than a month away, so it's getting close.
All right. Well, that's it for this special episode of From the Coach's Office, and thank you again for listening. Make sure you tune in for our next episode where we'll bring you another preseason edition of From the Coach's Office. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, or like us wherever you're listening from. And we're also on X at Varsity Voices 1, Instagram at the Varsity Voices, Facebook at the Varsity Voices, and YouTube as well. And feel free to comment or email us at varsityvoices312 at gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in again, and make sure you come back to listen to our next episode.